partner, a great mate, like build with you. But I am not into the business of just the whole idea of holding a man down that really doesn't want to be held down, like
like really, we just don't want to come into chaos. Now I got to deal with that in the home. Like there will be no peace. Like men, we just want our peace.
Yeah. So I think we have to take context into this. Like historically, like black men in this nation just haven't had as many chances.
Or take care of us.
Yes, and then why do we weaponize that by telling him that? Like diminishing him as a man, saying that, I bet off with a white man or a Latino man.
Because I think a lot of black men love foreign. If it ain't foreign, it's boring. It can be a fine black woman come in, but let Jennifer Lopez come in. It's like, J-Lo.
Maybe a cop-out. I think that's a cop-out. I think men want something that's easier. Correct. So they look at other races as easier.
In the process to get into marriage, should women engage in submission before the altar or after?
I definitely believe that women should be submissive before the altar.
I'm not doing that anymore. Like I am waiting until I am married to submit to my husband.
Because lead with grace. She won't see to give you grace on the flip side. By the grace of God, of course, Holy Spirit also speaks.
What's up, y'all? I know you missed it. So guess what? We are back with our Talk Back series.
Yo, if you want to participate in our Talk Back series, if you want to participate in any of our dope experiments or conversations, please DM us, hit us up in the email that's in the YouTube description. Hit us up. We want to make this happen for you. It don't matter where you're from. We got people that are coming from North Carolina, New York, wherever you're from. We want you to be a part. Holla at us.
There's this idea that women are more flexible when it comes to physical appearance. What do you guys think?
So when you say flexible, what do you mean by that?
Flexible as in the opposite sex. So how we view men when we're wanting to be in a relationship.
Oh, okay. So you guys are less rigid as far as like a standard on how they look.
Yeah.
Okay.
I agree.
Okay. So. I agree. I think men can be a little intense when it comes to what they like or what they're attracted to. And I think a man, or certain men, not all men, but some men will just pretty much say, she's not my type, or she doesn't look good, I'm not attracted to her, I don't want nothing to really do with her. When she could be a really good woman, where I think women will more likely say, I might not be that attracted to him, but I'll give him a chance because he may be a really good man. And it seems like, good men are getting more and more hard to come by. So, I think there's some truth to that.
I agree. I think women have this idea growing up of this perfect man. He got to be 6'4" with muscles and all this money and all these things. But I think in reality, because men have been on the hit list for just not making it, whether we're being killed early or just certain things. And so I think the slimmings, the pickings have just kind of dwindled down. So as they get older, women, I believe, settle for that type of man. And I do agree. I think men are still looking for this perfect woman. If she doesn't, fit the mold, then we turn our heads.
I have a question, just building off of that right there. Like, why do y'all think, like what influences that for men to, want to be so big on how she looks?
Instagram.
Social
media is wiping out the real, like the real, like bring the real back.
Because I was gonna say like men have always been visual. Now there's some dudes where it's like I think you talk about the dudes that are like taking it way too far. So a girl gets a bad BBL,
Yeah.
and some women think that it's like, us guys want that. We actually don't.
Yeah.
So I gotta put it on record, like we don't want that. Please don't do that. Like, no.
You don't want a bad BBL.
No. Honestly, if you line 10 guys up and you ask them, 9 times out of 10, you could really just like they would be fine with a woman that just goes to the gym. She doesn't even get surgery at all.
Yeah. So I wonder, where does it come from? It's so confusing that women feel like they have to look good for you to like have these BBLs, but then men say that they want a natural body. So where did it come from for women just extorting their body? It had to come from somewhere. So men say one thing, but want something else.
I think it's like certain guys with certain rich people or people with influence, they probably pick the BBL ones at that moment, and it's like that's probably what people saw. But if we're talking about like most of the population, most like guys don't need that.
Yeah. I think what I'll say too, and I think we can all just agree in general, men and women, right, that going through definitely your 20s, God does a good job of pruning a lot of the youthful mindsets, right? But of course, not everyone goes through that process as best we want to. And I think I can speak on growing up, and your idea of what it is to have a good woman is someone who is like a perfect 10. Like she gotta look like what I see in the music videos, and the reality is not all men grow out of that phase, right? Like there's still, you know, sophomore year of prom, you know, is my prom day bad? It's like, they're still in that space.
Yeah. I mean, I think there's like another aspect to it where I think a lot of the women are like perpetuating that idea too. And that like us, like we want to look good. Like I'm not going to sit here and say like I want to look bad. So I want to look good. So if I think what I see on social media looks good, then I'm going to try to look that way. So I think like there's a lot of women wanting to look that way. So they're also feeding into that idea of like men being able to have access to that. So I think like us also, like it falls on us. No, I know what you mean.
Is that a good mindset? Is that or is there truth? Do you believe that's a true thing that women are saying, or is this? So let's start from there. Okay. So a lot of women are saying, no, I didn't do this for a man, or I didn't do this to be accepted. I did this to my body because I'm doing it for me. This makes me feel good. When I feel good, when I look good, I feel good. So this has nothing to do with society standards or those type of things. Like, do y'all think that's truth, or do you think, you know, that's just a cop-out?
Yeah, I think that is like a cop-out, because I think that woman does not want to feel that insecurity. So it's like, how do I push it on to something else? Because you're not doing that for women. You're doing that for men, to entice men, to bring men in, to be attractive to them. So I think that's like...
I mean, I do think there are some women that are doing it for themselves, but it's out of a place of hurt. It's like out of a place of just like insecurity, like you said. It might not even be because they're trying to get someone. It's like, oh, I think this is what beauty looks like, and I don't look like that, so I'm gonna change my body to look like that. So it could just be because like they genuinely just don't like how they look.
I think that would definitely lead to another conversation to have. If a woman was saying, you know, I got this done to my body, or I basically mutilated my body to have this appearance because I desired to look like this. I think I would want to start with, well, when did you stop liking how God created you? When did it start that you were not enough as you are? Like, who planted those seeds and what watered them? Like, I would want to start there. Now, if it was like a thing where it's like, no, I just wanted bigger lips, or I just wanted a bigger butt or bigger boobs, like, it still comes back to that question, like, what made you feel like, you know, your A cups wasn't enough, or, you know, what made you feel like you weren't sexy or you didn't look good? Like, I would want to have those conversations.
And it starts with having that foundation of knowing that, like, you are created by God. Like, there's a lot of people that just don't know that. There's like, it's just, we're living in a world where it's just like, no, like
and what's happening on the inside is just a reflection of the outside. And so to your point, a lot of people are, I think, covering up a lot of insecurities. And I also, while you were talking, I was thinking too, is it, when you hear that rhetoric of, I'm doing this for myself, is it really is it really trying to, I guess, explain that healing? You know, most people are going through their journey and their healing, and so we get into this, I don't have to explain to nobody, and I don't have to, you know, and so I always kind of wonder what is the motive behind a lot of that. Where does the true hurt come from? What does that look like? Me personally, I've never been attracted to a BBL. And I say that because of just when I was coming up, we didn't see that. You know, that wasn't the norm for us. A lot of this came in the early 2000s, these videos, these music videos. And so for me, I was always attracted on what was in the inside. How do you feed my soul? How do you speak into my life? What is going on with you? What kind of partnership can we form together, opposed to the physical? Now, of course, you have to be light on the eyes. No man with a woman that's, you know, just, you know, whatever. But as I gotten older, I found that physical attraction kind of came down, you know, and more so of that inner attraction came up.
I agree. I agree.
Oh, I was gonna say, like, this is one of the situations where it's like two things may be true at once, because like, I could just take like most guys, for example. Like, I guess somebody else to say, yes, we look good to look good for women, and it's like, it shouldn't be a problem to say that, and it's like, it shouldn't be a problem if a woman wants to look good for a guy, because you know, just like when it comes to a relationship further down the line, like say for example, she's like, okay, all right, you got to get in shape. I'm not gonna sit over there and just let that get to me. I'll be like, you know what? Let me just better myself and try harder for her. Like that's what she needs in that moment. To do that.
I was even going to say just, I mean, we think about beauty in general, right? I'm just thinking about even like in scripture. If I'm reading about King Solomon, right? And just, you know, God told him to make like the temple a certain way, like beautiful on the outside, right? For people to see, this is what God's glory actually looks like, right? And so I think, like you said, it goes both ways. Like, you know, we can, like as men, all right, on the flip side, we get a good haircut, you know, feel ourselves, you know, just for ourselves, but also we want to hear from the women in our life, like, yo, you look good. Appreciate you. Like, you can see God's glory on you see God's glory. It's cool.
So I would ask, like, as men, what would you tell to a woman like that's right now contemplating that, like, should I do this?
No, don't do it.
Don't do it. Be yourself. Like, I mean, I would say be the very best you that you can be, and that's how you're gonna find somebody who's really like gonna connect with you in that way. Because if you go and say she gets a BBL and everything, now you're gonna attract a certain crowd of people who go after that. That may not be who you're spiritually aligned with.
But when I say motives, you have women who do it for, say, for instance, childbirth. And, you know, their titties are not the same as, you know, and so you wanted to look.
That's true.
You want to look more perky, more excited for your man. And so I get it because, you know, when you come from here to there, I understand that confidence, you know, so it depends on the motives behind it. Is it
I think that's what plastic surgery should more be for. Like, say for example, like somebody has a deformity, or say a woman, she had breast cancer. That's where I would be like, okay, all right, definitely, like, you know, if that makes you feel better, if that's what you want to do, But just if there's nothing wrong with you, and then you're like, you know what, I want to do it, I would be like, no, don't do it.
I don't think it's necessarily the opposite. I think it goes both ways, because a woman can say a man is too bored. You know, he could be everything financially, but he just doesn't give me what this, you know, what I'm used to, this roughneck or this person that gives me that excitement, opposed to this engineer who works and come home and provides. And so I think it's both ways almost.
I think, I mean, go back to your point, like, we have a responsibility to edify each other, right? And not just edifying the social media version of us, right? The IG reels, but man, just the day-to-day, right? You know, not just you got the fresh fade, or, you know, not the one day like, oh wow, girl, you look good today. And you never from her ever again. Like, I think it's, you know, brothers and sisters, right, husband and wife, whatever the case may be. It's having an edifying mindset in general. So,
and you got to ask yourself, who is that model in your life? You know what I mean? And who is it that you look up to? And who is it that feeds your ear and your soul to You know, and I had a conversation with one of my frat brothers the other day, and I said, you know, the challenges are so different in different stages in life. It's different from 20 to 30, 30 to 40, 40 to 50. And I think the issue is, too, having those OGs or those older men help navigate, you know, and say, hey, brother, don't go that way. She's a hoe. Or, hey, brother, you know what I mean? You get yourself financially together first before you try to make kids. And so it's so much deeper in our society, period, just as African Americans, and you know, just how do we uplift each other, let each other know we are beautiful and we are loved, and we don't have to do this to ourselves, and you know, and not penalize somebody who is not fitting the social media type, and you know, everybody want to go viral and everybody want to have the, you know, but. I don't know. I just think it's I think it's just crying out. Your insecurity is just crying out when I see stuff like that. So.
This is for just the women, right? And so there's a notion, right? I guess it's the ride or die type of notion, you know, for women to pretty much bring the king out of the man, like bring the best out of him, bring the potential out of him. What's y'all's thoughts around that?
Well, for starters, I am all for cultivating in relationships and edifying my significant other. However, like, I think it's very important for a man to also know who he is, and for a man to be led by God. Because as a woman, I don't want to be the one to give you your identity. I want to be able to affirm your identity. Like, I want to be able to, you know, speak life over you, but not because, like, you don't know who you are, your laws, you don't know, and you're expecting me to mold you when that's not my job. You know, like, if God entrusted you with me, then, you know, I want to do my best to be, like, a great partner, a great mate, like, build with you. But I am not into the business of, you know... I'm just the whole idea of holding a man down that really doesn't want to be held down, like, or when it becomes so, like, when a man just expects you, like, he's expecting you to be his mother, his partner, his this, his that, his, like, that's not something that.
I got something to add to that. I think as men, we're supposed to be capable of actually, you know, say, surviving on our own. Like, I think my parents did a good job. My dad did a good job. My uncles did a good job. My mom did a good job. I don't need a woman to come in and wash my clothes and do things for me, and I'm not even expecting that from her. If anything, like, I'm going out, I'm fighting, doing what I have to do. I just need somebody who's gonna be like there to support me. Just be like, hey, like, you know, after I'm tired, I come home, and she's just like, you know what something the other day was, or just like talk, just somebody to uplift me. But I'm not looking for her to actually like make me do this and make me. I'm like, no, please, no. Like, I just got done out there. Please, not do that.
Yeah, I think the biggest thing is you really have to be rooted in God and, like, know your vision, know your purpose before you even enter a relationship. And I keep hearing this thing about not dating projects, but I think we're all a work in progress. We're always going to be a project, but the difference is not going off strictly potential. You need to be actively walking in your purpose. So I am here to help that come to fruition. So that is a difference. I am a helpmeet, but I am not going to bring something out of you. If you don't know what that is, you really need to go seek God, because I'm not all of that. Like, you really have to go to God for everything.
Do you think black women set the standards a lot higher for black men? And so and I'm gonna say this too. Oftentimes you hear black women say to another black man that, you know, I prefer another race, or so. One, why does that happen? But then two, do you think black men are not living up, like, in terms of not being able to provide for black women? Do you think that black men don't have, like, why is it that you...
I think we have to take context into this. Like, historically, like, black men in this nation just haven't had as many chances So I think like it's not fair for if there's somebody out there saying, I need this black man to be at this certain standard. Like, I think you have to take a person as a whole, and you have to take like the nation as a whole. There's so much that goes into a person developing into who they are. So I think there needs to be a lot more grace given there. Like, you can't look at a black man that like maybe they didn't have their father around, like they had to raise themselves. You can't look at them and compare them to somebody else who had both parents in the home giving them guidance. So I was like, if there is somebody out there saying that, like, I think that's a check on themselves. Like, hey, like, what am I expecting of this person, and how much grace am I given?
Interesting.
So that's what I think on that point.
Yeah, I think I can definitely see that standpoint. I think to table off that, I think another thing to consider, to think about, is also like the women who say they see that man trying, or they know that maybe he didn't have the easiest life and he may not be in the best place financially, and he may be being kept down by the powers that be. But also the woman that's going to say like, I see that, I don't want that, and I think that that's something to really think about, because even though I see that, that's not going to be, you're going to have some men like that. You're going to have some men that are like, look, these are the cards that I was dealt, and I'm handling my business. Like, so it depends on what type of women are going to be attracted to the black man that says, I'm being held down, and the black man that's like, I was held down, but I'm up. Like, I'm determined to get up.
Yeah, because I was going to say, just going into that, it's a difference between we get it, it hurts, but you don't just have to sit there and take it. Like, this is your life, and you can actually make something out of it. Yeah. Like, it would be, I couldn't really blame a woman if she felt like she needed to leave after a certain point. If everything's happening to me, but I let it defeat me, and then it's like, I'm just not trying at all. Yeah. But if I'm over here, it's happening to me, but I'm still fighting through it, I'm still trying, like, I'm not giving up, that's what he should be doing. Because tough things happen to people, but it's all about how you respond to that.
Right. I do want to add age into that too. That's like, I feel like there's a different level of grace. Like, if I'm like, people in college, they just graduated, like they ain't got cars, they ain't got 6 figures. So I was like, I'd have different expectations of somebody that's like in their early 20s as opposed to somebody who's in their early 30s.
For certain.
So I was like, there is that whole like growing potential, like having somebody grow. Like, if somebody met and they were 19, like, yes, like help nurture that person, because y'all don't know what you're doing. Like, you two will become different people together. And so, but like in my 30s, like, a man has to have certain things, because like, like you're 30, like you're in your 30s, like what's happening there?
So you were saying, but so like to bring it back, to kind of pull it back, and so you were saying, why is that the reason why black women will try to date outside of their race, or prefer to date outside of their race, because we feel as though another race can handle us better than the black man can, or take care of us better.
And then why do we weaponize that by telling him that, like, or diminishing him as a man, saying that, I bet off with a white man or a Latino man, or
I think that can kind of be flip-flop, because I think a lot of black men love foreign. If it ain't foreign, it's foreign. Like, they love that mentality. Like, it can be a fine black woman come in, but let Jennifer Lopez come in, it's like, I want J-Lo. So why is it, I think some of that, because a lot of times I've seen like black women want black men. Like, we want a black man. We want a black man that we can say like, this is my strong black man. But when you have black men who are almost every time going to choose the foreign over your black sister, over the black woman, over your mother's black. But you coming home with the white girl. Now, granted, God is love. Love who you love. But I'm just saying, I don't think it was so prevalent, like it was such a big thing, like for black women to want this man that's not black. Because if it comes down to it, I want my black man.
So to the black women, what do you say to those who say, I can't deal with a black woman because of her attitude?
I think that may be a cop-out. I think that's a cop-out. I think men want something that's easier. Correct. So they look at other races as easier, more shapeable versus the black woman. And it's like, how are you going to be there for that Black woman? Are you going to leave, or are you going to weather the storm? Are you going to learn her? Are you going to have patience? Are you going to exhibit the fruits of the Spirit, or you just want something that's easy? And I think a lot of Black men just go to these other races because they feel like they're not going to be challenged, and no one's going to question the Black man, and you just really just kind of going to submit to me without questioning me.
I'll say,
Go ahead.
I think 2 things come to mind, right? And of course, we can't say every single Black man, but I have seen situations where there were Black men who they talk about their experiences dating Black women, and you can tell the reason why they're dating someone outside their race is because there's some sort of either self-hatred or just hatred in general towards either Black women or just Black people themselves. They won't say that, but you can you catch that drift. Like, I think you need to let's have a conversation, man. Right? And so, but going back, and you just kind of talked about this with leadership, right? The reality is, like, as a man, you are called to leadership, and I think in any space, right, leadership, it's hard. It is difficult, which is, I mean, there's grace for it. That's what comes with it. But kind of going back to if you're in a space where maybe you don't have either a father or a role model in the household, leadership goes from being something that seems difficult to now being impossible. And now you're looking for, okay, well, what is the easier route? And
so what is submission from everybody? What does that look like for everybody?
Or what do you mean?
Because it can be cultural. It's one of those words where it's like, it sounds a whole lot worse than
Because that's what I'm thinking. Like, I've heard... So I think I make it a lot worse in my mind than it actually is. Because I've heard men be like, oh, like, submission is like if I ask her if I can take out the trash and she lets me, that's submission. I'm like, okay, I can do that. Like, you go for it. And so, but then in my head, I'm also thinking of like I've seen extremes. Like growing up in the church, like there's actually growing up in an African household too. Like there's the whole like, woman, you do as I say, like, and you don't ask questions. Right. So that's what submission was to me for a long time. And so if men are like, I need a woman to submit to me, it's like, so you don't want me to question anything you say ever, like at all. And so I had to learn what submission truly meant. Because like, if you want to take out the trash, you go for it. I'm okay with that. So I want to know what men think submission is.
I would say...
So basically, submission, in my opinion, is more of just, say, for example, you're leading, like you've got a team, and it's like somebody has to like head the team, and say there's like a second in command. That person, the second in command, will still submit to like the first in command, just be like, okay, cool, like we're gonna we're gonna follow your lead. I trust you to lead, but it's not something where it's like you're subservient to me. Like your opinion still matters. Like we do still want to talk to you. Like we do want to hear you, because at the end of the day, like you're that special person to us.
Yeah.
Right.
So it is not just.
I think 2 things that kind of come to mind, and just, I mean, the word of submission also going back to, I think it's Ephesians. I think it's Ephesians 5. Wives, submit to your husbands, but even before that, husbands and wives submit to each other, right? And so I think there's different layers you kind of put on it. I think in general, it is this high level consideration for like the person you're with, right? And not just considering them, but also their place in this marriage, in this relationship, right? You're not just saying, you know what, I'm gonna do this because I want to do it, or he does his thing, I do my thing. Like, no, this is understanding. No, like, he has a role, he has a space, she has a space as well in this thing, and I'm not gonna act like I could do her or she could do me. Like, listen, you got your strengths, I got my strengths, and we consider that, but there's an order how it operates, and we're not going to overlap that order.
I agree. I think submission is submitting to the vision that we have set forth for our marriage, our relationships. The men, our eyes. A man has to have a vision. Right. And they say the woman is the neck. She helped you guide that vision along the way. And so I do believe it's just really, in its respect, understanding that. And I think in our society now, we blur the line so much of what a man should be doing, what a woman should be doing. But it's honestly just 2 people coming together and saying, this is what And I think this also ties into this whole 50-50 conversation.
Yeah.
It is your vision for your relationship.
Right.
And I
Right.
wish people would just keep people out of their relationship
Yes.
Right.
and what works
Yeah.
for you, because everybody, if we're trying to buy a house, you know what I mean? And I look at it like this. We're trying to buy a house and your credit could be better than my credit right now. You know what I mean? So right now, we're leveraging everything in your name or my name, whatever that looks like. You could be having all the money coming out of your account, you know what I'm saying? Because we're trying to get this house. But then I then leverage my credit to get a rental. So everybody has different situations. It's the mindset. If we want to build wealth, it may look different. You know, and so I just see it what works, because want to you to not have another that can help pick it up when you fall. And so if I fall, I need somebody to be able to pick it up too.
Yeah.
Right.
And so I think it's just submitting to the vision that we have set forth in our relationship, and just block out all the naysayers. That is what submission looks like for me. It's not a domineering, I talk down.
Right.
It's not bossing you around. But also, I do think that a man should show he can submit, because sometimes in a marriage it is, they say, give and take. You know what I mean? And she may be right in that moment. You got to back down and let her have it. You can't fight everything. It's compromising, and and so that's submission. You know, being able to hold your tongue. If I spoke everything that's on my mind, we wouldn't make it past a week. You know what I mean? So being able to hold those things back in a relationship, submitting to that, submitting to the respect, the love that we have for each other, that's submission to me.
Yeah.
And it comes easy.
Stay on the same topic when it comes to submission. I think another thing to kind of consider as well, in the process to get into marriage, should women engage in submission before the altar or after they get married?
I definitely believe that women should be submissive before the altar. I just feel like when you are serious about a person or you're intending to marry this person, I don't think you should wait to be submissive, because if I'm in a relationship with you and I can't submit to you now, then what are the chances I'm going to be able to submit to you when we're saying I do? So if you don't know that I have a rebellious spirit, or I lack humility, or I may need you to I'm combative, I'm not submitting to you, so I'm not showing you those things. I feel like it's important to be submissive. And if I'm unable to look at you and say, that's a man that I will submit to, then I can't be with you. I already know. So marriage is out of the question. So if you don't see that, or if I'm not, I'm gonna know myself. I know me. So I'm like,
And women really know, right?
We know. Because my personal thing is, if I'm looking at it sounds crazy, and this will never happen. I'm not aggressive, none of that. But in my head, if I'm with the man, I'm like, I see you at eye level. Oh gosh. Or I feel like, man, if we were in a fight, I could take him. Oh my God. It's not really a physical thing. It's not really a physical thing. It's just the way my mind works. Like, I can't submit to you. It's the way my brain says, I can't take you seriously. I don't trust you to lead me. I have to be in fight mode. I have to be prepared for whatever, when it shouldn't be like that. I have to be in a space where it's like, yes, I'll make my son. I feel protected. I put my head down. I don't see you at eye level. I see you at sky level. Like you're leading me. I trust that you hear from God. And so that's my thing. Like, so when I feel like that, or when I feel that little spark, they be like, man, I'm not. I already know that you're not for me. I also think it's important for people to pay attention to those little flags, because a lot of people ignore them. But you already knew that you weren't willing to submit to this man. Like you already knew that you didn't feel that, and you didn't want to feel it. You weren't even trying to you already. I think that's important.
I think that's where discernment comes in at, and spending time with that person. I have dealt with that in the past, and I feel like it's not gone to waste, but I have learned from that. I'm not doing that anymore. Like, I am waiting until I am married to submit to my husband, because that is a covenant that we're making. So that's what's super important. And I think as we're talking about submission, it's like we have to be submitted to God, because if we're not going to be submitted to God, we're not going to be submitted to our significant other. So it really is about what is the greater vision. It's not about control. You really do have to relinquish control, and that's something I've been like learning and working on, is letting go.
What are the things that you're like, I'm just not going to submit before marriage? And then for guys, I think the question would be like, what can a woman do to show that she can be submissive in marriage if she decides that I'm just not going to do it before marriage?
Okay. Oh my gosh, that's a great question. Can you come back to me with that? Like,
well, I mean, we can ask the guys.
That's a great question.
Yeah,
So that is a really good question.
Yeah.
Some things like what I just think about, where you may be put in a position where you're not married, but you want to submit to the man that you're with. I think it depends on like what type of situation you're in too. Like what is the dynamics of your relationship?
Is it like he's like, hey, give me your money? I don't know. I don't know. Okay, just give us an example.
I can't really speak on that, like that situation. But like as far as like submission, maybe he says, hey, you know, God told me, we believe that we're getting married, right? Maybe let's just say we're engaged. We are, this is the route we're going. And he says, I know that this is a big thing, you know, you're under this covering, but in order for us to go forward in the vision and for us to be under the same covering, then you need to come to my church. I think that's a big thing, because if you are both going the same direction, or if you are going to go, you know, getting married, you're getting married, so you're not going to be in two different churches. I mean, some people, you know, little to nothing shocks me nowadays, but at the same time, if he says, hey, you know, I just really strongly believe that God is leading us to be under the same covering as husband and wife. Submissive in a relationship would say, you know, I would say, you know, I want to get the proper release from my covering. I want to get the proper release from my pastor, spiritual father, whatever it is for you, whoever the figure is in your life. And I want to pray about that, you know, because you can feel really strongly, and that could be your whatever, but this is still a really big thing, because maybe you're not supposed to come under the same covering until a certain date, because maybe God has you in this season and he has your mate in this season. But when your partner says, you know, I want us to come together now, I think that would be submissive if you say, okay, let me consider this. Let me take that and consider it, because that can be a touchy topic where you may want to be like, I'm not leaving my church now. Like, where a non-submissive response to that would be, no, I'm not leaving my church. Like, this has been my church for 15 years. This is who but you're in the process of becoming one, although. You know, and I feel like people who are married are always becoming one. I don't think it's a one-stop shop. You know, so I think that would be the difference between me being submissive in a relationship, or even like just the ideas, because I feel like before you're even married, like you're hearing the vision of your partner. Like, what do you see? What do you want to do? What do you want to create? What is God telling you? Because if God is calling me to missions, but he's calling you to plant churches, so like we're in the I'm gonna be in Africa, you're gonna be here. Like, what is so I think those things are important, but I think that's part of it. Like like how you guys said, submitting to the vision, and submissive would be, hey, you know, let me pray on this, fast on this, let me talk to my covering, and if I get the release, I will follow you, even though that won't be easy for me. I trust that God gave you to me. You know, I trust God, and I trust you. You know, so
and just to quickly add to that, like, that's what makes it so important, I feel like, to wait until you're married, because you are listening to God, you are praying, and I think with that it comes with peace. So that's how I think that you'll know, you know, whether to listen to your husband or your fiance to go like a certain direction. Because I think in relationships, sometimes I've seen this too before, where some men will use it as a means to control. So that's why I am like against doing that before married.
I guess I think one thing I'll say too is like, just in general, right? In general, kind of go back to both you guys' example. I think it's actually a great example in general. When I think on your question, you asked, what do we look for in submission? I think just us feel like that we have a space in this relationship, right? Yeah. I think the idea you talk about, so that same example, if in a situation I know, okay, this is woman of my dreams, we locked in, trying to marry her, and we're in that space, like, okay, let's see about getting under one church, one common vision, right? By the grace of God, I'm displaying a level of character and just love for her to where she sees, he's not just doing this so he can stroke his ego. No, he's doing this because he sees something for the future and for our family, right? True. By the grace of God, we've had communication, we've had conversations, right? Also, by the grace of God, like in that similar type of situation, right? It's not a situation where I'm like, all right, leave your church and like never return, never go back. I'm taking you from
Just
the very people who I poured into you. Maybe it's a thing where it's like, I would love you to be under, with my church, but man, like let's pop in. They got that revival in 2 months. Yo, let's serve. Like we're still here, and whether it's church, whether it's family, friend groups, like. We're still working to immerse our lives together, right? But of course, give me the space where if I see something where I believe this is going to be beneficial for our marriage, our life, like I want to feel like I got a voice in that, right? It shouldn't be this thing where I'm just like, man, listen, I don't want to step on no toes, man. I don't like, So
on submission, I think. If the woman really actually likes you, she's going to naturally submit to you. And now, like when I say submit, it doesn't mean like my way or the highway, you have no voice. But it's just certain things. Like I've been in relationships with women to where it's like they're combative on everything, and it's a headache. And it's a whole lot. It's a whole lot better for both parties when I'm doing what I'm supposed to do. I lead, and then she lets me lead.
So I'm driving to the park. When you turn left, she see you go right.
Like with submission, it's not just like my way or the highway is beating her down. It's just like, okay, like really, we just don't want to like come into chaos. Like we already got to deal with chaos outside, and it's like now I got to deal with that in the home. Like there will be no peace. Like men, we just want our peace.
Women will naturally submit when you display a level of trust. So, and you are consistent. So as long as you are consistent and trustworthy, and you consider us, it's going to happen naturally.
So guys, do what you're supposed to do. She will not.
That's right.
That's how
Be consistent, okay?
Well, this is to the fellas. I'm gonna tell y'all exactly how to do it. Exactly how to do it. It is in the way that you lead a relationship. It's who you are. First, you got to know who you are. As a man, as a person, you got to know your foundation and what you stand on, and you will not sway to the left or to the right. You know who you are, and you got to know your worth, because a lot of men don't know their worth. A lot of men are just taught to, chase tail and chase, but know who you are. But then you find that right woman, you have that conversation. I believe communication is really key. Let me tell you what's key. You have these check-ins with each other. And I think oftentimes we don't talk in that way to where, what is it that you see for yourself? Let's write it down. What are our goals? What's your credit score? What is your, do you have any mental health issues? Let's talk about these things.
Right.
And so that way we can align ourselves up. And as a man, we say, okay, it says he who finds a wife finds a good thing, not she.
Amen.
It says he finds. So once I find that, it is my job to lead her in that direction. And so everything that I think of has to be a consideration of her. Because I know what it is she wants too. So I can't just move on everything I want to do. I have to consider her. I have to consider what she has going on. I have to consider, you can be ready for this, but is she ready for this? You know what I mean? Is your kids ready for this? All of these, are they ready to handle what you're trying to do? And so, to me, that's what it looked like. You just have to lead the right way. Lead the right way, and men got to open their mouths. We got to talk. We got to say, no, baby, this is not what we're doing today. And I guarantee most women like that. See them and say, no, we're not doing that today. We're going to go up to the mall. We're going to buy you a nice dress. We're going to go down here and get something to eat. Your feet laid all night. We're going to sip some wine. And we ain't going to have no arguments.
You see, after he laid everything down, he said, I'm going to rub your feet. I'm going to get you your mom. We're going to go to the mall. It's almost like, tell me what we going to do. And then how we gonna do it? Because it is women want to be led.
For sure.
It's in us. It's in us.
For sure.
Like to want to be led. Like so when a man says, look, this is what we doing. Okay, baby.
Yeah. I don't want to think.
It's not always a why. I think when people always challenge with this combativeness and why, I think that is challenging someone's healing. I think when people are at this healing place, they always, why I gotta do that? And baby, let's sit over here. Why we gotta sit here? I think people are still going against their healing journey because everybody on the healing journey. I mean, nobody can tell me. You know what I mean? But you're missing out on a great opportunity. Man who will lead you because we all desire that. A good woman and a good man. So and I'll check those things too. That's what therapy.
Literally.
Therapy is for.
Therapy. And I'll even add with that, everything you said, right? And then just as you're modeling, displaying leadership, you're doing it through the method of grace, right? I think it's in scripture where it says, husbands, don't be harsh to your wives, right? Being a leader, right? The reality is, listen, if you locked in with someone, y'all gonna be together for a long time. You're not every day you gonna be, man of the year. You gonna have your days, right? And of course, that's not your character, right? But it's just you being human. But if you don't lead with grace, she won't see to give you grace on the flip side. By the grace of God, of course, Holy Spirit also speaks to her. But when we lead with grace, it makes it easier for her to see, nah, man, like I know you, right? I know your heart. I know who you are. You've been locked in for man, just a day. I got you.
This last piece
Talk to me.
that I've learned in my years of living, men set the tone.
All the way.
Men set the tone from the time they walk through the door, from the time they leave. Every little thing you set the tone in how you speak.
Literally.
And so if you set the tone in your house and you been coming in there yelling and you want a brick that you got to pay for, you know what I mean? But they said, a man can build a house, but a woman can tear it down. And so you set the tone in your relationships. And so men have to be mindful. If you come in there and you giving her, hey baby, how you doing? That kiss on the forehead, you gonna get everything for the rest of that day. If you come in there, you walking past, because I've done it. Bad day, I don't know nobody talking to me, but I've seen how my night ended too.
So on the 50-50 debate, is it acceptable in the dating phase? True or false, and why?
Absolutely.
Absolutely.
I don't think nobody, I don't think anybody, whether I have a son or a daughter, if you're not married, you should not be taking care of nobody, because it is your understanding of partnership. I think when you're married, your responsibility to take care of your wife, but I don't think you should be paying somebody's all their bills and you don't even know, especially in this day and age, everybody, we got a man for this and a man for this and a man for this, and I think you need to find the right woman. And I think you need to be in yoke with her. And then I think that you take care of your wife, you take care of your kids, you provide. But I don't think dating somebody, you should be, now as a man's first dates, I feel like a man should do the right things. You ask her on a date, you treat her to a good date. You open her doors, you pay for her dinner, she asked you out. You asked her to go out. But it's not this, I'm just going to pay for all your stuff, because you got to make sure that you can survive. You got to make sure that you can maintain yourself. Now, if you got it, that's fine. You know what I'm saying? But I don't think it should be a requirement for it. And that goes both ways. I would never expect my daughter to feel like some man should have to just take care of her or have to give to her. You know what I mean? I always teach my daughters, what do you really do bring? You know what I mean? What I don't want you to think about, my daddy got money, or what can you add to this man in his life? Because your daddy won't always be there. And so I don't want you to feel so dependent on somebody either. But, so no, I don't think you should just be paying, everything.
I would say not bills, no. But when it comes to dating, yes, like I'm very old school. So I would want someone to court me. And yes, courting to pay for these dates. So not saying I won't, put a tip in every now and then, pay for the tip or some ice cream or something. But I really need the man to show that you are a provider and you are willing to provide for me.
And like for me on the flip, like I like that, but I'm also like the type that's gonna take you out. Like so, and the thing that's hard about dating now is that I am the type because I will slide in your DMs. I am. I'm not going. That I am. If I'm like, I like that. Let me say, I like what you did there. I like the way you put that together. I like the way you think. I like the way you posting. You know, let me just see. You never know. So I'm an advocate for shooting your shot. I know it's not traditional. However, I'm not traditional. You know. But as far as like with dates and stuff, yes, I want to be courted too. But I am not against like taking a man out because there's times when I have. The problem that I think is pretty scary, or the thing that's kind of like that makes me kind of like, oh, like I probably got to be careful doing this, even though I know I'm not what they say, like people, I don't want to say trick, but like people like, oh, like shit, like no, it ain't that. It's just like I'm like that. Like, come on, let's go on a date, and I'll get up from the table and I'll pay the check and be like, "Are you ready?" Like, so the check don't even hit the table. You know, I'm smooth with it.
I think to your point, I think when you start off giving so much like that, it sets the tone, and I think you have to be able to give as good as you get, and you have to make it positive. I think it's setting yourself for a marriage. If I'm always the one giving, if I'm always the one providing, if I'm always the one having to say I love you, if I'm always the one, and then you're not giving that back, you know, you're just taking these withdrawals, and eventually I'm just gonna move on. So a lot of people don't appreciate that, and so I think it is you're showing that person. Now, again, in the beginning, you got to court.
Yeah.
Not just saying that
Right, for sure.
starting off, but after a while, you have to start showing that, hey, I need to show this brother that I'm feeling him, and I can see a future with him, and I think we can build this thing together.
Yeah.
So.
And that you're sufficient. Like, I think that it's also like how you said, like, I don't want my daughter to feel like, oh, like a man has to take care. Like, another reason why I'll flex and pay the bill and stuff is because I do want you to take a mental note that I can run this $300 checkup, get up, pay for it, smile in your face, and then the ball's in my court. Like, I don't have to, we can see, like, but if we're in a relation, like, I just the way my brain works. But if we're dating, it's like, I do feel like it's like, I give, you give. Or, you know, like, you courting me, but, like, I also, like, want you to know that, like, I see.
I'm experiencing my own, because I know a lot of OGs, and I've seen marriages fail after 20-something years of marriage, and these men were sole providers. And they did everything. They provided everything. I mean, some of the best trips, and it still failed. It wasn't enough. You lost a job. What happened to my bins out there? And so you create this monster. And so I rather see that this woman she is able and willing to support me, you know, if I fall. And instead of me just the expectation is
that you have to take.
And then going back to your point, we weaponize certain parts, so we pick and choose things out the Bible that benefits us. It says a man should provide. Well, you're supposed to provide. That's what it tells us. You know, when they want to, you know, but it goes both ways. You know what I mean? Because anything can happen to one of us. I can be sick, put in a wheelchair. I need to know that my woman will wipe my ass in that wheelchair instead of just get out and leave me because now we cannot take a trip to Bali. So I think when you find that one and when you see it, when you know it in your gut, I like this brother, this right. You know, I think that's when you start having the conversations of helping each other. And I think in marriages, you know she's the one and he's the one when you do more for that person than you do for yourself. You think about that person more than you think about yourself. And then that's when you know it comes so easy then. I shouldn't have to. It's the quickest who we can put on the table. Because I want to take care of you so bad. You want to take care of me so bad. And we just fight who gonna pay for it. And then you may say, well, okay, baby, that's submission. You the guy. You got it. That's the
right. I'll even add to that. You know, I hear, like, I've heard older couples talk about the 50-50 conversation, and like I've heard kind of often where they're like, bro, that it wasn't even a conversation with us, right? Like we just love each other, right? And even when you think about just marriage, I mean, just going back to scripture, right? You know, an image of the body of Christ or the bride of Christ and Jesus himself. Like, we know Jesus came in his fullness, right? He wasn't lacking nothing. He said, listen, I love y'all. Y'all better get all of me. But on the flip side, you know, as a church, if we were just selfish with it, said we're not gonna seek God, we're not gonna do nothing, we'd be like, bro, like your relationship is off. And so the same way we would see it spiritually, like even in a marriage and even before marriage, right? Like how are we modeling that off rip, you know? And so kind of going back to it, like I've heard older couples talk about like, bro, we don't, listen, we've always been with each other. We love each other. We rock with each other. You know, he has no problem paying for everything. But I mean, I don't got no problem if I got to step into, right? Like there's not this reluctancy to really show up for your partner.
It just seems like we've forgotten how to be social. There's so many rules. Like,
I would say
there's
this.
just so many.
I think we stop loving the giver and we love the gifts.
Ooh.
I think that we
Preach.
I think that we, you know, back then you buy a lady of roses. You know, she's excited about the roses, but she's more excited that you got these roses. You remember this color. You remember these things. Now it's kind of, if my girlfriends they ain't liking it on social media, I don't like it. You know what I mean? So I think we're forgetting to love the giver and the person who's providing these things to us, and then vice versa. You know, Father's Day, most men get a pair of socks, you know, for Father's Day. You know what I mean? But we're forgetting that men need to feel love too.
Right.
Because I'm telling you, men are so simple. I'm telling you, this is how simple. When you come home, rub his ashy bald head, tell me you look good, he will go out there and hold the car. Men are that simple. We just want to feel appreciated and respected. And I think that's the two components. I say, women, you all have more power than you think. I mean, you all have power to make a man. If you look at most of our leaders and figures in life, is always because of a woman that died or something like that. Because the woman's power. And we're going to talk about down here. You all got power. You know what I mean? So anybody how to utilize that power in the right way. My women in my family, I have never heard raise their voices. They've all been married 20-something years. I've never heard it. But when my grandmother used to tell my grandmother 50-something years, Carlton, that's enough. Carlton will run into the damn room like a puppy. But that's the power she has. You know, and I think if women tap back into that power, that feminine side of them, and all this rough side and all of this, that's where it's at. Because men, we will, you know what I mean? If this is a delicate flower, we don't want to step on that. You know what I mean? So we learn to adjust ourselves too, you know, and so just know your house.
So as far as how do we get back to creating healthy family dynamics?
Pretty
is
much.
that how do we get back to like building these,
reestablishing what is supposed to really
establishing
be,
what is, you know, what we
what's keeping us from getting there?
What's keeping us from getting there? I think nowadays a lot of like unhealthy relationships are being glorified. I think you're seeing more divorce. I think you're like, I feel like now we're getting to a point where we're so desensitized to divorce, where it's like, oh, I'll marry this person, or I'll be with this person, and then like I'll divorce them. Like, oh, this person was married for one. And it's not everybody. I think it's just what's in front of the eye. Like, so if you're on the socials or you're on, you know, the whatever, like it's what's in front of us, what we see. So if you see 10 celebrities within a year, they've all been divorced, they've been married. It's like you're being programmed like quietly, but you're seeing it's like, dang, like, okay. So I think sometimes it can become like, well, is marriage like still a like is that still a thing for some people? Or is like, should I get married? I think it implements fear in more individuals or in more women and men. So I think if we saw more like that Huxtable marriage, like I hate to bring up Bill Cosby. So I just think if we saw more healthy representation of marriage, and if we had healthier conversations, I think a lot of the conversations being held now amongst our generation and just between men and women, they're so toxic. I feel like everything is a fight. Everything is a men versus women. When it should be, how do we bring the man and the woman back together? So I just think that dynamic changing and the right conversations being had will really shift the trajectory of the relationship of men and women.
It sounds like to me the old saying, show me who you hang with and I'll show you where you're going. And it sounds like it's not a lot of examples in front of us. You know, traditionally, I think in our culture, we come from such a traumatic past, a lot of single parent homes. And so we don't have those examples. You have the grandmothers in the clubs with us today, and you have, and a lot of men don't have those examples of men to show them the right way and how to be, and how to show up in the home and how to provide and all these things. And so I think we're losing our men and women, our examples, and we're looking to influencers to be our examples. And people tell us what relationships look like, and not knowing that their relationships is failing all the while. And so we're not trusting ourselves in our ability to trust ourselves and trust God to lead me on this journey and block out all this other stuff and show me what's for me, teach me what's for me. They say, my pastor say, teach me your voice. And I think once we understand God's voice, especially as men, because men have to be led by God in order to lead a family. So praying to teach me your voice and be aligned with that. And I think then we will start, and then the respect. I think society has taught us to disrespect each other and not respect us and who we are. And so bringing that back and just showing that you got to respect each other. We're powerful people. You know what I mean? And once we understand that, then we can start cultivating that love that once was there,
So I think hearing all of us talk about like the dynamics that we're in and like what's keeping us apart, I think it's two-sided. There's also but the bigger problem is that we're keeping God out of our relationships. But then there's two different standards. There are people that are outside of the church, and then there are people that are in the church. So as people outside of the church, of course, they're going to keep God out of the relationship. And we're seeing the effects of what it looks like. All these standards on Instagram, all these standards on YouTube, all this stuff. That's just what's going to happen. People are going to chase their eyes. People are going to chase what they want. That's just what happens. But I think in the church, there's just a lot of immaturity. That's awful. But there's just a lot of people that just haven't grown up. I think that's us keeping ourselves very immature. So there's not a lot of maturity with our relationship with God, but then also as people. There's a lot of people that it's we grown people. We are grown, but we act like we're not. So I think that just that does not help us. And I think we've forgotten what a whole human being looks like. And I think God wants us to be whole and healed, and I think we take that aspect out of just who we are as people. I think I said a lot, but I think we just have taken God out of relationships. We've taken God out of what is God? What does He want us to be as whole people and as in relationships? What am I doing to help that? I think in the last few years I've listened to a lot of podcasts. To a lot of what's out there, and in it it's praying through it and be okay, God, I want to know what's happening. I want to be aware of what is a good relationship. Because there are a lot of people that aren't Christians that have really good advice, better advice than people in the church.
That's real.
So it's taking the time to be okay, God, you have put wisdom in people that are not necessarily in the church. I mean, they don't know you. They don't know you yet. But they have wisdom that they can share. So it's taking the time to look and search. I think one of my favorite Bible verses is God says, God hides something, and it is the glory of man to search it out. We're supposed to search things out.
Literally.
That is part of our, that's part of who we are.
Facts.
God made it to be able to search things out. So I think we just need to do better at educating ourselves and becoming more mature. Just whole human beings.
That actually kind of leads into what I was gonna say. So I think men and women, you should really just never stop growing, always be open to new perspectives. And then remember that the other gender is more alike than different than you. So there are a lot of situations where some women, they're over here talking about men as if they're just oh, well, men do such and such, and it's no, you got to think about them as a person, just how the other way around. A lot of the times, just think about how you would want a situation to be handled for you, and just really having empathy for the other side, because a lot of the times certain situations will arise just because you forget that's just a regular person, as opposed to just some outlandish figure you don't know. But, just pretty much never stop growing. Really, just be open and remember that we're all in this together. We're more alike than different.
So I would definitely say stop comparing yourself and your relationship to other people. listening to other people and comparing yourself may not work for you. So just tuning out that noise, and just making sure that you just keep God first. Like, that's definitely like the foundation. So do what works for you and stop looking at other people.
This is the thief of all joy.
Yes, it really is.
I'll say this. I think what you guys said was spot on. Two things that come to mind. First thing, it's clear as day that the enemy wants men and women to be divided. Right? The enemy wants that war on both sides. And like, just, I mean, for us, for anyone listening, like, it's just encouragement. Don't feed into that war, right? Don't engage. When you see the conversation on social media, podcasts, your friends, like, try to redirect the conversation in something that's more edifying, more healthy. Now, that doesn't mean, ignore certain flaws, certain sins, certain things that might be happening. Like, there's still a standard to hold people accountable, right? But people are going to only go as far as the word takes them. Right.
Yeah,
and so if your word is always combative, we always going to be fighting. So the first thing, recognize, man, that divisive war, that's the enemy's tactics. But the second thing I would say, just encouragement, like, be the difference.
Yeah.
Right? Maybe your lived experience was, I came from a split household, right? I saw this growing up. I saw so many different things, and maybe that's what you're living out. Say, you know what, God, it ends with me, right? My marriage will be different, right? My friend group will be different. My friends around me, our marriages will be different. And it will be said that even though culture is saying one thing, when they see our community, they say a whole different thing.
That's true.
Be the difference.
Yes.
Definitely got to be the difference, and really just kind of, it's really important to be an example, because a lot of the times, like, people don't realize. Okay, so say, like, going into what you were saying, like, there's kind of a stereotype where it's like a lot of black men, they don't have their fathers in their lives, but I come from a situation where I've had both parents in my life. Like, they've been married longer than I've been on this earth, but also the circle that I'm around, there are a lot more situations like that than you think. And
for sure.
Sometimes, like black men, we make great fathers, and I really want to be an example for that. Like, when I do have kids, I don't have kids yet, but but I'm already thinking about that now, because it's like, I do want to be a good father. I want to be a good example, and I know we definitely need that out there. We need more families out there.
That's real.
Yeah.